Yeah, I thought. All right. Good morning, everybody. Bob Turner. I'm back for podcast number 5. I'm sitting here with my cousin, actually. His name's Matt Ferry. He's down in North Carolina. Matt's 39, and just referring to my notes here a little bit. Matt's 39. He's a dad. He's got a daughter, Peyton. She's 12. Matt's a Marine. And I never say former Marine to Marines. I always say Marine. Some people say that. I don't like that. Once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. So I know Matt spent time in Fallujah, and he wrote a blank check to the U.S. government to go and fight for our freedom, and I'm proud to know him, and even more proud to be related to him. So like I said, he's my cousin. He's my first cousin. I don't see him as much as I'd like to. He's down in North Carolina. But he loves to fish, and his passion is fishing, I would say. And through that, and kind of getting back to being part of civilization, as you say, he created a nonprofit called Veterans Fishing. And in my quest to have ordinary people on that are doing extraordinary things, Matt came to mind because I followed him on Instagram, where he's got about 11,000 followers, and I just thought that was pretty cool all the time. So we thought we'd bring him on. He uses the platform to talk about PTSD and traumatic brain injury, things like that. He's talking about things people don't want to talk about all the time. So I'm proud of him for that. So Matt, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And take a couple seconds and tell us what you're all about, and get us going.
All right. Well, as you said, 39, pushing that 40 mark. So just starting to hit my stride, if you know what I mean. But no, I basically, we're not, just to clarify, not a nonprofit officially. That the goal with that someday is when I personally have boats that I'm running. But well, I can get into that in a little bit. But basically, I'm all about helping veterans. It really is even more simple than just veterans fishing. It's not that I get paid to help veterans. It's not that I get any sort of incentive or prize. Every day that I wake up, that's basically my goal. If I can help one guy, one girl in whatever they're looking to do. As an example, I had a random girl, non-veteran, approached me a couple weeks ago. She had a friend who's a veteran that she wanted to send out on a personal charter trip by himself in Texas. Approached me and said, "Will you help me do the fundraiser?" Absolutely. And that took almost no effort. It was just sharing posts, just kind of communicating with her, and she raised like $600 in a few days.
So you're using your influence through the Instagram page to Absolutely. Connect with people, really, nationally.
As much as I possibly can. It definitely, when I see folks that have a lot of followers, especially way more than me, than us, it's basically, and not using it for the right reasons, I guess. Yep. It bothers me, so I try to, people like will compliment that and comment about the followers and whatnot, but it took thousands and thousands of conversations to, I guess, create a lot of those followers, if you want to call it that. But,
so you've done that organically, as they say.
Yeah. So this all started on Instagram, and kind of Tarantinoing this a little bit, but yeah. Basically it was started to just try and pull in people like myself that were either in the midst of their struggle with transition from military life to civilian life, or veterans themselves that just went out fishing. I just wanted to start a community on social media. Instagram happened to be the first platform I tried, and it took off pretty quick. It was just more or less a environment for people to share fish pictures, stories, find people in their area that they didn't know were in their area to fish with. I'd like to say that I'm responsible for a few friendships out there that people have made with each other, just for the simple fact of the page being there. So it basically started as a community, and I saw a way to help in selling hats. That's what I started with. One run of hats, looked a lot like this, but they were all black. And
you need some fish hooks in that thing.
I know, right? You're too busy on the end of the line.
Right.
Basically, I wanted to start a nonprofit, but 100% transparency. I was going through a divorce, and I just did not have the means for that, or nor did I want to get my name all involved in a thing where I wasn't stable 100% personally. Sure. So I chose the route of going with an LLC, which what veterans fishing is. However, I've never met anyone else that does what I do, and I don't take a paycheck. The only money that doesn't go back out to charter boats and captains and organizations that are taking veterans fishing is the money to rebuy more apparel.
Sure.
And that's it.
Is the apparel a fundraising source for you?
Yeah, it's the first one. It's the biggest one. It's one of three ways that we've, that I've found to raise funds very easily. It's a constant reminder, because obviously you're getting new followers all the time. So sometimes you'll not put out the message of what you do for a while, and you'll have 1,000 new followers or 500 new followers, and you need to kind of re-educate, those folks on what it is you do. It's not just 5%, it's 100% that's going back out of everything that gets sold and raffled and tournaments, everything.
So you're busy with it. Let's back up a little bit. Talk to me about your military career. When were you in? When did you get out? What did you do when you were in there? And what was it like coming back?
All right. I was in 02 to 06. I went to school for artillery. Cannon crewman was my MOS name, 0811. Did a lot of training in that. But obviously, once they realized that Iraq was going to be an imminent thing, they started spinning guys up to get ready for the invasion to go over there. The timing of my entrance into the Marines and the time that I got out of my school landed right about the time where my unit that I was going to was already deployed in Okinawa, Japan. So me and a bunch of these other little hodgepodge group of Marines that just got to the fleet got sent over to a headquarters unit, kind of like the land of misfit toys, where all of our units had been gone or something like that. But we got put on guard duty for like a month, and while all this stuff's happening and we can feel it around us, we can feel people training, and next thing we know, we get told, like, you're going over there for support. And we didn't know if it was Kuwait, Iraq, whatever, but we ended up starting in Kuwait, and was basically with a grunt unit out of Camp Lejeune, right down the road from me now, 2-6. And they were in charge of guarding Camp Commando, which was the main hub for basically the kickoff to the war. So spent a lot of time in scud bunkers, dodging missiles, and basically wearing full gas mask. It's called, MOP 4, which is basically like everything: suit, gas mask, hooded, everything. And, sometimes it's 110 degrees out there, and you got to stay in that stuff until the alarms stop. And so real quick, as a kid going into that environment, you learn to make friends. You learn to become, humorous to everything. Everything is comedy. You have to allow that to happen in an environment like that, even though we're not out there in convoys laughing our asses off, but like we still had to compartmentalize everything immediately. There was no room for, playing the little kid anymore, or the dumb recruit that doesn't know what he's doing and this and that. It was time to become a man. And
you're busting balls, but you've got family, and you are family.
Correct. So, that, and like you're saying, that's like, that had to be my family, because that was the furthest I had ever been away from home, the longest I had ever been away from home. the most letters I had ever written and received in my life. So it's definitely a different time, and I'm kind of glad that technology wasn't as prevalent as it is now, because I still have those letters in bags, and I read them from time to time, and yours being one of them. It's on the Hancock lumber letterhead.
That was a long time ago. I remember that.
Time ago.
Yeah.
But basically, when that deployment was over, we were saying goodbye to a unit that we just spent, the better part of like 6 months with, and going back to be attached to this original unit that we were supposed to be. So when you first get into the military, there's a certain period of time where you're treated differently, and you're called a boot. It's a rite of passage type thing. Every guy, has got to deal with it, and that's just the way it is. Myself and one other individual got back to this unit, and we had deployed to a combat zone as boots, and all these other saltier Marines were in Okinawa partying and, doing nothing else really. So I got to kind of skip that, which was good, but it also I missed that little section of military, like all the little stuff you do back in the rear, as they call it.
Yeah.
The making the bunk perfect, and pressing out the camis every day. Like I missed all that. So when I got back, I was kind of an S bag, as they call it. But we didn't get messed with, just because we had already kind of paid our dues. Yeah. And so real quick, that unit got orders. Our unit got orders that we were going back. So we transferred at that point from an artillery unit to a grunt unit. We were called provisional riflemen. We trained with grunt units. We did what's called a CAX several times, combined arms exercises. We went into old neighborhoods that were run down in California and basically played war with, people posing as terrorists and things like that. And all that training definitely helps. And I don't know how else to tell people, but my second tour, like I feel like I exceeded. That was a place that was easy to stand out, because if you basically just gave 0 Fs and just didn't worry every minute of every day.
Yeah.
And kept your mind on the missions and things like that, you could be put up the ladder, if you will, pretty quick. And I was a fire team leader, which is normally a corporal or sergeant or above position, but I was it as a lance corporal. So I had my own vehicle, my own team. I ran over 100 fire team missions, convoys, things like that with those guys. As you said, we were in Fallujah, Phantom Fury. That was definitely one of the toughest places that I've ever been. And any guy that was there during that time frame for Phantom Fury, you meet them and you find out that they were there and nothing else needs to be said. It's basically that kind of understanding of what took place. And then kind of in a nutshell, after that deployment ended and we got back, it was at a time where PTSD really wasn't, at the forefront of any sort of medical discussion in the military. It's still, to this day, gets brushed aside, and myself, along with hundreds of other veterans, speak out about that a lot, because we get messages from guys that are active duty now, crying out for help, basically, saying that either they have PTSD or their seniors that were in when I was in are treating them, like XYZ. So there was that process of transition began basically the minute that I got back, and there was no assistance with that transition. I was 6 months away from getting out at that time. And so I ended up getting put with another headquarters unit, and that's when I started having the problems that, you hear a lot of guys talk about, the anger, the drinking relentlessly, the, just, infidelity, the list goes on and on. So like it was a very like dark time for me when I was first getting ready to get out. Like I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know where I was going to go. I ended up going to Hilton Head, South Carolina when I got out. So um, that was where I had a couple friends living out of high school. But basically, looking back on the 4 years that I had done, I didn't view it as anything other than, I spent a majority of my time in the theater of the desert. So um, that was very hard to let go of. And to this day, you talk to anybody that has PTS or TBI, it's not something that's cured. It just gets better.
Doesn't go away.
Correct.
Yeah, you learn to live with it, right?
Absolutely.
Well, that's some stuff. That's some tough stuff, Matt. I've thought about you over the years, and that's tough to deal with. And you hear about that. Wow, that guy, yeah, he's dealing with PTSD. But unless you were there, it's I can't put my finger on it. What you went through and saw, and you and millions of other guys, I'm sure. But all I would say is keep fighting the good fight. And I think that you're doing good things, and you know that. And they say the easiest way to help easiest way to help yourself is to help someone else, right?
That's correct.
And it looks like, to me anyway, on the surface, you're doing that every day, and that's kind of how you get out of bed every morning. And maybe that's what keeps you going. I'm sure every day isn't rainbows and unicorns.
No, it's not. And like an example of that, not being it is definitely like when we had the Afghanistan pullout, and I use that word very loosely.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be discussed really. It's just
Right.
we all know what happened. But
Yeah.
Talking to a lot of guys that were there, that were having a really hard time because of that, So
Yeah, and I won't dive deep into that with you. I'll just say that when those are, I guess, what do they call them? Triggers, right? So when you see something like that, or maybe something that doesn't jive with you, or pisses you off or gets under your skin, that's got like almost like a setback, right?
it's
Yeah.
I mean, imagine I guess in your line of work, you're working under a GC that builds a huge mansion, and then a new GC comes in and burns it down. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
All your work gone.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot, and I appreciate you sharing that, and it adds some context and perspective for anybody that might be looking at this and seeing kind of what you've been through and where you came from and why you're getting behind what you're getting behind. You've always loved to fish. How has starting that, they say if you take something you love and make it your work, you never work another day in your life, right?
That's right.
Hopefully this hasn't taken the passion of fishing away from you.
No, if anything, it's just made it stronger. If it's even possible to do that. When I first moved to Hilton Head, when I got out of the Marines, I basically was bartending, working at a golf course. I was making really good money, because in environments like that, touristy, a lot of tips, etc. I was making a lot of money. So naturally I partied really hard, and I worked on a fishing boat part-time. But fishing to me then, when I got out of the Marines, didn't have the same meaning that it does to me now. It was an excuse to go drink. And
Right.
that's what I used it for the better part of, the next 5 years after that. So I've always been a fisherman. Your uncle, my dad, he was a fly fisherman.
Yep.
When he passed, I kind of had thoughts of continuing to fish. My mom didn't really know much about it, and the fly stuff was just way too hard. So finally, when I made, my first friend or two at like 8 or 9 years old and went fishing, we did spin fishing. So just conventional. So basically just took that and went in that direction. I still always have uber respect for the fly guys, because that is an art that really no other outdoor sport possesses, in my opinion. But it just that was the fork in the road where I went to conventional fishing, and I really haven't looked back. So
it's kind of cool to see you take something that was an escape, if you will, from one thing back then, and you're still using it, so to speak, as a way to, create calm and peace in your life, without the drinking and without any of the other crap.
Correct.
You haven't, you don't drink.
Nope. It's actually going to be 7 years in March.
Good for you. Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
great. That's not easy, especially coming from what you've come from and dealing with some of the stuff that you've dealt with. So I mean, you've got this veterans fishing thing. What's a daily routine for you? You're getting out of bed, you're trying to get your feet on the ground and get right, see what the day brings, and talk to me about a typical day.
The best part is there is no routine. There's no set kind of day for me. I mean, in the wintertime, that's definitely a hard time because you're trying to just fundraise, because there's no fishing trips going out. But you got to remember the public is spending money on Christmas, on holidays, so it's a hard time to fundraise.
Right.
So majority of the time, basically end of October through now, recently within the past couple of weeks, is just sending out an enormous amount of messages, emails. 13 Fishing is a company out of Clearwater, Florida. They're a company that I've been hot on personally for a while. I love their equipment. I love their gear. They love veterans. They love Made in America. They're a very legit company. I reached out to them as one of the people saying, we'd love to have you sponsor some raffles, or whatever you could do would be fantastic. They turned around and brought me on as an ambassador personally.
Wow.
So I'm basically now part of Team 13 Fishing, and basically the reason they did that was to get with me first, see how that relationship works, and then with hopes to integrating them into veterans fishing, because the thing that I lack is sponsorship. And the reason because of that is it's run differently than nonprofits, like you alluded to earlier. But just to answer your question, like for today, I have 2 tournaments going. So first thing in the morning when I wake up, I'm logging into this website called TourneyX, which is where I host the tournaments. And the tournaments are something that I started last year in late summer. Majority of our followers are very, very understanding of the fact that if they pay $35 to enter a tournament and they win and they get, I'm in my guest room here, I'll show you. These are prizes laid out for a current tournament that we're doing.
Wow.
So
you get people to donate that.
Yeah, so it's just a lot of cool companies that see what we're trying to do, and I've had emails come in and ask people, grilling me, saying, I want to know exactly, this sounds too good to be true. And I'm like, I've shown people my Shopify statements and this and that. But
do you get some haters, Matt? I mean, anybody that's got 11,000 followers on any medium has got to have somebody out there trying to stick it in your ribs. Have you had some of that?
Yeah, I've had not a lot, thankfully, but people think that all veterans get along. That's not true. I mean, I wish that was true, but like at the end of the day, we're all different people, just like the rest of us. But the reason I bring that up is, I've had a couple over the years that have reached out and they look at me, those individuals, like they look at me like competition. And that's so far from the opposite,
Right.
of how I think. And to me, every single person that it has any involvement with getting a veteran, not just on a boat, but outdoors in any capacity for therapy, you're on my team.
Right. Yeah.
And I also don't have a set list of people that I send this money to. If I see a 501c3 pop up that I didn't know about and I research them and I find out they have say a boar hunt coming up for veterans, I might throw $100 or $200 their way.
Right.
Because it looks like it really all boils down to me is the environment that's going to be created to show this therapy to veterans. Filling a 100-foot boat with 100 veterans, that's not my idea of connection. And you can't even hear nature when you're on a boat with that many people. You know what I mean? So
No, so I mean, this requires a fair amount of time from you.
it does. And it's finally gotten to a point where discussions have been had, not only with me and Melissa, my significant other, but also a lot of other guys that I work with in this space, basically saying, I got to start paying myself just a little bit here, to keep doing this. And it's been something that I put my foot on the ground since day one and said, I'm never going to take money from this. But when I calculate all the hours that I put into it, that's what helps
You got to
me.
eat, you got to eat and pay
Yeah.
your rent, I mean, yeah.
So
Are
I
you
have
working
other
otherwise?
avenues. I'm sorry.
Are you working otherwise?
I do. Yeah. So this will make some people laugh, but down here in where I live in North Carolina, people pay for services, everything. We started a business that picks up dog poo. So that's what I do. Yeah. For 4 mornings a week, I go out and pick up dog poo for people.
The heck?
And it pays some bills. So I mean, it's
what the heck?
It's a good filler. And I always try to keep X amount of hours in the week open. I know you know this, but people that watch this probably won't. But Peyton, my daughter, is a diabetic, so I just try to remain on call. If something happens, at school or wherever she's at, I can be there, and it's something that.
I mean, there are no dog shit emergencies, right? So, I mean, that could wait, right? You could walk away from that. I mean, what the heck? You've created something that you can go do anytime. You can control your own schedule, and you can pour as much time as you want to or need to into veterans fishing.
Correct. That's it. And I kind of joked when we first came up with the idea of the small little side business, but I mean, it's something that exactly like you're saying, it can be done anytime, and people are just happy that we're there to do it. And
there's a guy up here in Maine, he's the dump guy, and he started with a pickup truck cleaning out people's basements. He's got, I don't know, 27 vehicles and 30 plus employees, and I'm sure he's a millionaire. So
I mean, we can make that the dog pickup stuff as busy or as slow as we want. So that's a good thing too.
Well, so I always say this to people, flash forward 5 years, and what do you see? And if you had a crystal ball, for both you and for veterans fishing?
Well, I have probably at this point about a dozen guys and girls, either veterans or people that I have built a lot of trust with, that have some sort of relationship with a veteran in their life, as not pro staff or ambassadors or paid people, but they're people that believe so hard in this that I feel like they're a carbon copy of me to an extent. My goal in 5 years, and what I have dreams about, is to have each one of these people as basically a satellite, location. And these are people that have offered their own time, their own boats, their own kayaks, their own fishing gear, their own time. And the people with bigger boats, all they've asked for in return is for us to help with gas and ice and bait whenever we can. And that's an easy agreement to keep. So I'd like to have a boat within 5 years that is running trips every single day. Where that might be, I don't know. I live a couple hours from the Outer Banks, and I have a huge lake 2 miles down the road. So, and then obviously I travel, back up north to visit friends and family. And I know organizations that I've gone out on trips with in like Plymouth, Mass, for example. There's an organization called Rifles to Rods.
Yep.
I've helped them with trips. I've gone out on a trip or two with them, and amazing guys. So like, it's not people wanting to start another business. It's basically just people that don't care about making money, that care about the amount of veterans killing themselves out there right now and trying to stop that.
Matt, you've been doing this for a while now. You must have a couple of stories that stick out in your mind of people that, have come to you and said X, Y, or Z. And where you had those moments where you're like, yeah, I'm where I need to be and I'm doing the right thing? Do you have anything that comes to mind you like to share?
I mean, one guy comes to mind who I talk to probably about, I would say almost daily now. This individual definitely struggles a lot with PTSD outwardly, despite, them trying to probably curb it a little bit. But I've never told them to do that. And
Yeah.
I've gotten recordings and messages and phone calls from this person when they've been at basically the darkest point that a person can be, and had to, almost talk them off a ledge a time or two. And that was, that was like a year and a half ago. But now he's one of those 12 people.
Wow.
He is somebody who finally understands that sharing all of this stuff that's going on in his brain is a strength and not a weakness. And he thanks me, I don't know, way more than he should. And I'm always the first person to be like, listen, it's not all because of me, it's because of all of you guys helping me. That's kind of how I always say it. So I'm sure, like you, if somebody thanks you for building them a house, you're not going to take all the credit for it. You know what I mean?
No, it's my team.
Right.
I'm probably the least person that deserves the least credit. All I really did is kind of what you're doing, which is bring the right people together.
Right. I'm like the quarterback of a lot of situations, which, that's the one part about the military that I loved. It made me into a natural leader, I guess you could say. And it's just about how much I choose to use those abilities.
Along those lines, I mean, you're dealing with people that are struggling all the time. Some of that stuff's above your pay grade conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. What do what would you say to someone that is struggling with PTSD, or that's in a dark spot and needs, there's a social stigmatism, right? A stigma, if you will, to, mental health, right?
Yep.
I always say if your arm was broken, you'd go fix that, right? But if your head's not right, everybody goes and hides in a corner and doesn't want to talk to anybody about it. So, I always try to say, well, if I was, so distraught or whatever, I know that I promised myself I'd at least drive myself to the hospital and say I'm not leaving till I'm in a better spot, right? So, but what do you say to somebody that's reached out to you, or someone that hasn't, and is dealing with it? What do they do?
Well, I always make it very, very known that I'm not here as a first means of tragedy, like crisis intervention.
Right.
I will answer every single message that comes into me. And I've had some really tough ones, where I immediately brought in 2 or 3 other veterans that I not only know personally, like,
Sure.
I know we say we know people personally now through Facebook and social media, but when I say personally, that means I've known them face to face.
Right.
But I brought a few guys in on those types of situations, and we were able to get the VA involved and whatnot. So like the problem is a lot of these guys and girls that want this necessary, correct help for what they have. There are waiting lists, there are eligibilities, there are a variety of hurdles that some of these people have to pass over. And so really I walk a fine line. I really have to, and I don't give advice to anybody that I don't know below a best friend, basically, or family. Like I try not to give advice to anybody, because like I'm not you, unless I have some kind of direct experience. But basically, I just try to flood positivity into every conversation that I have. And if I can see it's going to a dark place, I'll just hose it down with anything that I can positive. And I don't try to make up fluff. I try to keep it relevant and keep it real. But if I see that that's not helping, I will absolutely send them phone numbers that are available. I will absolutely tell them who I would see or I would recommend if I was in their shoes. And if I feel like their, well-being is in jeopardy, then that's when I'll start reaching out to some other people. But especially people that I've never met that I'm meeting through Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah.
I would never want to get so deep into a dark discussion with somebody that next thing you know, the message is gone and I don't know what's happened to that person. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
that's scary. Well, cool. I mean, you've shared a lot. I appreciate it. Appreciate your transparency. And I know that there'll probably be somebody that sees this and it'll help. Getting back to the social media side, I mean, a lot of people, I mean, what did I write down? What would you tell someone looking to increase their reach with a Instagram page? I mean, you've done that organically, but I look at it and I'm like, geez, that's a lot of people, And it's not like you just put some viral video on TikTok. I mean, that's like you bootstrapped.
yeah.
Don't get me flossing. But yeah, I mean, that's not like going out and farming followers. I mean, you've really just, that's probably just blood, sweat, and tears, contacting people, reaching out, and it's taken a few years, but you've done it.
Yeah, I mean, what I would tell anybody looking to grow is just have patience. I can't tell you how many times I almost deleted the page in the beginning.
Yeah.
But it's just like, what is it harming by being
Right.
there?
Well, you're consistent. That's the thing I've noticed is you've got content daily.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I stayed with Instagram. Like at the time that I started this, I had literally just deleted everything on Facebook because it was when politics was just rampant. I had enough.
Yeah, it's not good for you.
No. So Instagram, majority of it's just visual. So it's easy to see a picture of, 3 guys on a boat with, veterans fishing hats or something like that on, and just having them holding, it speaks for itself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've participated in, there's not a lot that people will message me and say, hey, I'd like to collab with you and a bunch of other people in a giveaway. You want in on it? There's not a lot that I say no to. I've been in a giveaway with a lady that runs a makeup business. Like I gave her a hat to give away, but from that, I got like 3 guys that were husbands of the women that were watching the video,
Check it out. Yeah.
So I never snub anybody. I answer almost every message, which in this day and age is unheard of, especially with people over 10,000 followers. And the content, like you're saying, it's if you just treat your business page like your personal page, then it's just going to be your personal page. But you got to think. That's how I would say I grew it. I thought like somebody that was following my page at all times. Okay.
Yep. What's been, maybe you can answer this, maybe you can't, but what's been an unexpected benefit or takeaway from you having done it? What happened that you never expected would have happened from having an Instagram page with 10, 11,000 followers?
I've recently been talking to Jimmy Buffett's personal boat captain.
There you go.
So he helps run an organization down there called Freedom Fighters Outdoors, which Buffett I'm sure has a hand in. But basically talking to the guy that runs Buffett's boat and is out there every day with him is
well. And getting over 10,000 followers, it does give you some legitimacy, if you will, in that arena, right?
Yeah, I've had some reshares from some people that I am like starstruck by, like Mike Iaconelli is a famous pro fisherman.
Yeah.
And he not only like gave us a shout out, but he's like next to a guy in a photo wearing veterans fishing stuff and
cool stuff.
I was just like,
That's when you know you're having an impact. So good for you. Well, how does somebody get a hold of you or check you out on social? You're really all Instagram, right?
I've made I'll say concerted effort to try and not ignore Facebook, because I feel like that's a whole different group of folks, and definitely I don't want to say more mature folks, but like
sure.
that you can't really have a fake page on Facebook, which is nice.
Yeah.
It's all basically the real people. And this year specifically, I've been making an effort every day to get on Facebook and treat that group the same way I would treat every other follower that we have on Instagram. But the most impact is unfortunately, at the moment done through the big IG, but it's all the same, it's all the same Zuck anyway.
Don't get me going, he says. So it's get on Instagram, Veterans Fishing, Facebook, Veterans Fishing. You're Matt Ferry. You're in North Carolina. Somebody wanted to reach out to you, they can get a hold of you.
info@veteransfishing.com.
Somebody wanted to donate money, they can do that. You've got a Venmo.
We have a business PayPal, we have a business Venmo, and then we also have like ways, if people are buying apparel, we have 3 or 4 different ways that if you wanted to buy, say, $100 worth of stuff, they're payments that you can split up and all that. So
what would be really cool to take away from this podcast? Like if some guy with a boat called you and say, hey, I saw your podcast with Bob and I've got a boat off the coast and I'll do 2 trips a year for you, set it up.
What you said, what would be the biggest takeaway?
Yeah, like what if, what would you like to see come from your time here today? Like if somebody's watching this that owns a boat down in Florida or off the coast, or, what would be awesome?
I mean, anybody that would see this that would have any sort of way to help our impact would be epic. I mean, anytime somebody reaches out and they're just wanting to help, that's like a dream come true. But I guess the thing that I really like to leave people with is the reason, the nutshell reason of why this is a thing. And that is because nobody wants to talk about the suicide rate. It's a very, very uncomfortable subject, but that number has not gone down, it's gone up.
Wow.
And last year and the year before were a big reason for that, unfortunately. But like the fishing itself it's a drug for a lot of guys and a lot of girls. And it's not just the excitement of, tugging on a fish. Sometimes when I'm out personally, I just literally have my rod in my hand, I close my eyes, I pretend I'm blind almost. And how would I do this? Or like, and I'm hearing sounds and splashes and birds and, it's amazing.
Therapeutic.
It's something that no actual drug can replicate. And for anybody on the fence about supporting something like this, any outdoor programs that are out there right now actually have the ability to become vetted by the VA for prescription therapy. So this is, long story short, this is making headway. In the government, this is quickly becoming a means of therapy recognized by the VA. So just try to,
sky's the limit.
Yeah, just do some research and see what it's doing for veterans. And if you have questions, I'm always available for anybody.
Cool. Well, thanks for being here today, as they say, even though we're doing it on Zoom, but it was good to connect with you. We need to do it more.
It would be nice to do another one when I'm up there next time, for sure.
Maybe we'll go up to camp and do one and show them what a little fishing. Show them what a little fishing looks like, and get my dad out there and get on the lake. And
nice smallmouth bass in that lake.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, I appreciate you taking the time. Super proud of you. And I know this is going to be well received amongst the people that I know. And we just started this podcast, so I think you're number 5. So this will be out a week from Wednesday or whenever. So I'll let you know. I'll send you a copy of it first, but and you can share it out to whoever you want, and maybe get a little bit more traction and show people what you're all about. So thanks again. I appreciate it, and we'll talk with you real soon.
Thanks, Bobby. Love you.
Take care.
You too.
Hey, don't go anywhere.
All right.